Thank you all. This session is about APIs, just getting into the guts of it, the business of what we do. And we want to acknowledge first, many of you have many different products that support our customers in the API space. I believe we have a slide. These are our speakers you know well, Turan and Joseph. Thank you both for taking the time to be here. I'm catching my breath, having run out, but appreciate you all dealing with that. There are a lot of companies who build technology based on standards that support our customers here. So you see all these names. Again, these are the companies that have built systems that we have tested and certified at RESO. So it's important that we say that because we would have loved to have every one of your API services on stage here, but we can't do that with that kind of number. But these folks obviously have given their time and preparation to us for this event. So we want to talk about, in practice, how your rollouts have been, and in particular, where we've seen some changes in the past year or so, where we've had policies that have come down, and we don't really do much policy at RESO, but our technology has to support whatever business needs our customers have. And so those things do coincide with each other a lot. We have Rodney Ganshow and Jason Sanchez here from the National Association of Realtors. If you have questions about MLS policy, because what we do ends up always needing to have us work together and communicate about these things. And I think we are improving our ability for our technology vendors to have those conversations on the business side as well. So I want to start with you, Turan, and just kind of get into the guts of it. How has the business feedback been from you as we've transitioned to web API services being a more primary way that your customers are looking to get their data?
So things are going really, really well in API land. I don't think it's a secret to anybody in this room that the learning and adoption curve started out fairly flat and slow, but now we're starting to see the spike, right? We're going parabolic, as lots of us like to say, which is fantastic. We have a product in the market that we know our customers like and use. We spend a lot of time engaging with data recipients, hear what they have to say about improvements that could be made or possibly should be made, and our team is really good about responding to that. That is true for anybody who is on Sam's list, providing API solutions to the industry.
You have to love the confidence of the guy who comes up with no socks to the stage too. It's a good look. So just from a basic level, how's your experience been high level so far, Joseph?
Well, I think we started off in going the same direction as Turan said. It was difficult at first. Initially, a lot of apprehension from data consumers, data recipients. How do you convince them that RETS is the classic car that is no longer drivable, and API is the new hotness. So we took some time and we worked with them, we coached them up, we encouraged them to participate in RESO, take some time, attend some of the work group meetings, get a better understanding of how and why this transition is beneficial for you as an organization, your business, but the industry as a whole, and how it streamlines the process for everyone. And as a result, like Turan said, you've seen this upspike in people moving over. I think you said yesterday, your slide a year ago was one page with 10, 12 organizations that had really started pushing web API adoption. And yesterday, your slide, it was 7 slides. So.
Yeah, measuring in slides, it's a great conference life, but yes, it's a good point. So talk a little bit about the prep that you do with your MLSs. We know on the broker side, when we have a Dan Troop here from Remax, that they want a simple way to access data across marketplaces. The brokers don't see the borders that we put up in the MLS space. And if they have a simple single transport to get access to data, it simplifies data access. What does that prep work look like with your MLSs when you have conversations about not just maybe moving customers to Web API, but also with the NAR policies that make a one feed available? What do your conversations with MLSs look like?
A lot of it is helping them come to an understanding of how they're supposed to apply the policy. Writing policy is straightforward enough, but implementing it is where the devil's in the details, and you have to get it right. NAR's one feed policy, when that was first pushed out, we had the usual suspects come knocking on our door, the people you would expect and would qualify for that type of feed, and we were very happy to implement it and give it to them right out the gate, but there was apprehension from some of the MLSs. They still saw the ability for possible rampant abuse, and that you had to kind of instill in them some confidence that compliance would apply, and that would be part of a key part of the process in ensuring that you can provide this beautiful new one feed to guys like MoxieWorks, and it can benefit them, benefit the industry, benefit the MLS itself, and not to be bashful about saying, I don't know how I'm going to implement this. Can you talk to me about the best way you would do it? Can you share with me how other MLSs plan on doing it? Can we rely on other organizations to give us kind of an understanding, a heads up of how we would progress, and is this acceptable?
Yeah, I suppose the conversation goes something like this. Hello, Mr. or Mrs. MLS executive. There is a decree that has come down from the mountaintop, and thou shalt comply. So this is something that you're going to have to offer, so let's figure out how we're going to get there. Little tongue-in-cheek, but not that far from the truth. So we have to respond. The way that we look at it, we wanted to comply, give our customers the ability to comply with this mandate, single feed mandate, in a way that was really simple for MLS executives and their staff. And so to get into the meat and potatoes of it a little bit, we sought to tackle the problem with kind of two main points. First part of that is for any MLS that extends multiple data licenses to a single data recipient. So single data consumer receives an IDX, a VAL, a back office feed. We combined those data feeds into a single feed on the fly and handle the deduplication of fields in that process. All right, so that's a whole bunch of data gobbledygook. What that ultimately means for the MLS and staff is there's very little to no operational overhead associated with implementing single feed for those MLSs, which is great, right? Things don't have to change in the background. On the data consumer side, things are kind of interesting there. So in addition to combining those traditionally multiple feeds into a single feed, we've added a resource into the API that includes metadata about the permitted display and use rules. What the hell does that mean? So for an example, if an MLS feed includes the field bathrooms, right? And the MLS has determined that bathrooms are suitable field for display on a public-facing site, so think traditionally IDX, and also suitable for display on a private site, think VAL. Then the data recipient receives the data for that bathroom field along with a signal or a flag in the metadata that says this field is suitable for display on both public and private websites. Then we get to something like close price, right? The MLS has determined that close price is not viable for display on a public site, but can be displayed on a VAL site. Then the data consumer picks up, they get that data for the field close price, along with metadata that defines the permitted use for private. Not public, but private. And what's really nice about that is, obviously, the data consumer doesn't have to have multiple logins, hit the MLS, make API calls under multiple different logins, but all the permitted uses for display are right there in the metadata, as opposed to the way that things work today, which is typically those field sets are defined in a paper or digital license agreement. So.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up, because if you're working with us in our work groups, the lookup resource and the field resource, these are things that we need to continue to improve and make available to support these business cases, because it may make some of us uncomfortable to talk about other organizations' policies, but there are things that we have to support. There are requirements for us to support in our business. So if you're working with the transport group, or if you're not yet, get involved there, because that's where some of these things come to fruition, so we can do those kinds of things in a standard way. What's been your experience so far?
There are some conversations, there's some RCPs already out there. So the conversation's been taking place for a while. And steps have been taken. You know, Turan mentioned the way that they've chosen to implement it to try to ease the fear of the MLS, and when they give out some one feed. The problem is that this is a multi-year process. You're not going to see MLSs accept, this concept of one feed overnight. You're not going to see the data consumer accept one feed. They've had these processes built for years where they've been asked to consume an IDX, a VAL, and a broker back office feed as 3 separate implementations. Merging that on their own end also, presents a level of complexity for them, and implementing it will take time. They need to be better participants in policy conversations as these are rolling out. Take time, take opportunity. Everybody can email Rodney Ganshow and ask a question, and Rodney will, respond in due time. Rodney's great that way. I love talking to Rodney. I love asking him if I'm about to put my foot in something, if I choose to go this direction. We should all be so lucky as to have someone else we can discuss these with as we implement the policy.
Yeah, Rodney's awesome, but he's probably staring daggers at you right now.
I know.
So, but this is a good conversation to have. I mean, folks may not know that NAR has had very regular meetings with vendors more recently that have bringing those conversations together, but you are the implementers. So what do you see as the forward progress there, and what would you like to see more of in terms of being able to ensure that the technology subject matter experts are involved in that process?
Well, I think NAR's taken a great first step. Jason Sanchez, and has been really straightforward in giving me a call and having a monthly little chat session with me, so that I'm kind of aware of what NAR's discussing, and I can adjust accordingly, and I can pass that information on down the line to my customer MLSs. But that's how you move this ball forward. Engagement with NAR, engagement with CMLS, engagement with RESO, open conversation, talk about, within the realm of reason, talk about some of these things that scare you. Dan said the other night, or other day, find somebody at one of these conferences, sit down with somebody you don't know, okay, and have that conversation. Yes. Absolutely. But the organizations like RESO and CMLS and NAR have to do that too. They all have to sit down and have those conversations and share amongst each other, not operate independently. That's not how standards are born.
Yeah, I'd just plus one to that. Communication, collaboration, primary key to success. That's the secret sauce that makes all this work and keeps it going. I sort of somewhere in there was a second part to your question. In terms of usage and adoption, we've been pleased with the adoption that we're seeing. Obviously, for those of us API providers, when a mandate like this comes down, there's real work to be done, right? There's stress and strain on our project management teams. The engineering and development teams have to spin up, and there's real cost associated with that. So it's not a joke. We want the work that we've done to be adopted, to be used, and to be a benefit, right? The concept of the single feed was, hey, this should make improvements for the industry. We're not doing this for shits and giggles. Sorry, that one snuck out.
Tommy Lee already said it. We're okay.
So to date, we have 54 different data consumers across, and I'm speaking just for Bridge. I'm sure yours are different, but 54 different data consumers who have migrated to single feed, which we think is a great start. It's not a huge number, right? But as my friend Frank Glausch likes to say, it's not for nothing. So we're on our way, and we will see. Ultimately, I do think, like Joseph said, that this is probably an initiative that's going to take a little time to see truly widespread adoption, mostly because data recipients have built systems that don't, that work with the way the industry is set up today, and it'll take a little bit of time before they see it. But stop and think about it, right? Particularly for those at RESO, we've heard for years and years and years that, hey, it's kind of ridiculous for me to have multiple logins to get different data sets from the same data server, right? Okay, well, we have now fixed that problem for you. So you have some inherent tech debt now because the industry has moved forward. Solve that tech debt, make your life easier, migrate over. It'll take time, but we do see it happening.
What would you say if you just had to guess about which customers are moving first? Are they large international, national aggregators, or do you find that it's a different kind of a company?
There's a mix, but I would say that what we're seeing more is the people who I think pounded the table for this kind of thing, which is brokers. Those are the main data recipients that we're seeing migrate early.
Yeah. On day one, Cass from MoxieWorks called me up and said, I'd like my one feed now, please. And I said, that's nice. Have you talked to the MLS? And he said, why would I talk to the MLS? Just give it to me. And I said, no, okay, we'll work through this. We'll work with you. Let's go through this process. And it was a process. I think MoxieWorks was one of our first and early adopters, and it's taken them until today, and I think they have 9 of the MLSs that are part of our network that provide a one feed now to MoxieWorks. And then we've also saw immediately your usual suspects, Redfin, Compass, organizations like that have a suite of products that they know this would be beneficial to have it all in one pipeline as opposed to bifurcating, an IDX feed here, a VAL feed there, and trying to mash all the data back up together on the back end to service their members. It's going to probably be another year or two before we'll see more widespread adoption amongst our network, because I still get this question today. Actually, as a matter of fact, I got this email from Cass last night. He said, I got denied my one feed from one of your MLSs. And they said it's only, the one feed is only something that NAR says can be given to a brokerage, not a third-party recipient. And he asked my advice, and I said my advice is to reach back out to them and encourage them to read the policy. And then if they have some questions, have them contact me, and I'll be happy to talk with them about it.
Rodney has definitely exited the room right now. I know he hasn't. So, big picture. We can't do everything at RESO. We have to know our lane. Now, it changes slightly at times. We've had a lot of broker influence recently. And so we have to constantly know what our membership wants. But we're going to hear from Danae Evans of Council of MLS today. We've obviously got NAR folks here who do things that their members need. Are there things with, we'll say, CMLS or NAR where we need to focus more on getting our technology minds in front of those conversations?
Documentation. Document it, write it down, make it easy to consume, get it out there, push it on your data consumers and data recipients, give it to them even if they don't want it, links to it, make it public, don't put it behind a locked door. It shouldn't require a login to have technical information provided to you. Encourage them to review it and get back to you. Be a resource for them. Give them concierge level support. That's how you should address this. And because if you do that, ultimately your adoption will follow. You want to be easy to do business with. Don't make it difficult. Don't make the data recipient have to jump through hoops. Give them what they need, fits their needs. You are, at the end of the day, responsible for making those decisions. And you can say yes and you can say no, and you can say this doesn't really fit your use case, so unfortunately I can't give this to you. And you can have a broader conversation. But don't start off with no. Get to yes.
And I'll steal this moment because CMLS has done a lot of good work on helping folks think about where they need to publicize this kind of documentation about data access. But we also have a request out to you all if you've done conversion of your customers from RESO to Web API, and that was a positive process for you. At RESO, we would love to work with you on that so we can develop a generalized guide, because the number one question we get from MLS execs is, I don't know how to get started. And obviously our vendors have great documentation, they can do that individually, but we'd love to get from you as MLSs a generic guide, a vendor agnostic guide to be able to help any leader of an MLS, which we know sometimes is a single person shop, to start on that process to move their customers forward. So back to our previous question about working together with different trade organizations. What do you see? He's laughing already. What do you see where we could make improvements?
It's a little early to talk politics for me, Sam. I'll be nice. I could be clean. Back to what I said earlier. Communication, collaboration, right? I will say this. This is it actually a mandate, or is this more of a decree? What? Policy?
It's a policy.
Policy, okay. The policy came with a fairly tight turnaround. So for those of us who are technology providers, API providers, there's some raised eyebrows. I think that's both good and bad, right? I mean, everybody wants the industry to hurry up and get there and adopt new things and build that. I will say this. When that policy was issued and the timelines around it, I'm sure like Joseph and everybody else that is an API provider, we got to work, right? The first thing that we did was that we pulled together a focus group that was comprised of people from executives from MLSs, from brokerages, both large and small, and also from the vendor community. And I'm sure we weren't the only ones who did that, right? But we sat down and by the way, many of you who participate in that are in the audience. I won't call you out or single you out, but you know who you are. Thank you again very much for your time and input. Pulling together ideas, wants, and needs from all of those constituents. We all have a role to play. That's the key to success. So a more direct, that's the political polite answer to your question. The more direct answer to your question is this. Anytime that there's, I feel, my opinion, anytime that there's a policy that ultimately has a technical implementation or integration that's tied to it, yes, that should not happen. That should not happen in any one entity vacuum, right? Different trade groups, different organizations, stakeholders, constituents need to have a seat at the table to discuss the pros, cons, and benefits of whatever that policy statement is. And so it's back to communication and collaboration. Let's work together. We're all driving for the same net end result.
And I think we did see some of that flexibility and change come into this recent process, that folks are absolutely aware of the fact that we need that additional input. And that's starting to happen. Joseph, any final thoughts there?
I think Turan covered it pretty well. I would say our experience was a little different. It was a little more like chaos. Oh God, what? They did this? Why? Okay, how's everyone else doing it? You don't know either? Okay, well, I'll make some phone calls and we'll figure it out. We stumbled for the first 5 minutes because we weren't really aware exactly what the language meant. It was a little confusing to us. But we rallied the troops, we got our team together, we started conversations with each of the MLSs, all the practitioners we have at the local level, people who were actually engaged in the policy decision making, and we managed to get that clarity we needed. And hopefully we won't have, we'll always have stumbles like that in the future, but hopefully we'll have better engagement now that we've learned from this lesson, and we can move forward as one industry as opposed to separate entities all trying to steer the ship, as 3 separate captains or 4 separate captains.
And we're happy to help be that voice for you when we need to bring that technology voice to whatever organization it happens to be.
I think RESO is absolutely, I'm not going to speak for you. I'm going to speak at you, but I'm not going to speak for you. I think RESO absolutely has to be that voice on behalf of those of us who are in this realm, this part of the industry. We need to have a voice, and RESO should be that voice.
Thank you both for taking the time with us today. Can you give them a big hand? Thank you. We're going to run a video and then go to a coffee break.
Let's face it, data distribution can be pretty mysterious, kind of messy, and super inefficient. But what if it didn't have to be like this?
Welcome to Bridge. Our platform lets you take control and improve the efficiency of your data licensing and distribution.
You'll get total transparency over everything that's happening.
You'll automate and streamline workflows and deliver more choices to members so they'll never have to wait to innovate.
And our team handles all the setup for you. With Bridge, brokers, agents, and their vendors get access to proven modern APIs that are a smart way to share data and make sure the MLS stays up to date with the latest industry standards.
And you get easy ways to turn that data access on or off. With Bridge, you get a complete solution that's easy to use, easy to build against, and easy to love.
Data distribution should be a small part of your workflow, not your whole job.
If you're looking for an efficient and simple solution for your MLS, look no further. The future of real estate is here today.
Let the Bridge platform help your MLS lead the way.